Officer Rick Grimes gets shot on the job and falls into a coma. When he awakens, he discovers that the hospital is abandoned and the world has become overrun by zombies. Rick sets out to find his wife Lori and son Carl. Along the way, he befriends a man named Morgan Jones and his son Dwayne. Morgan explains to him the rules of dealing with walkers and the fact that everyone is already infected and will turn into a walker upon death. Rick leaves Morgan and Dwayne to head to Atlanta in search of his family. There he is ambushed by a horde of walkers, but is rescued by an Asian guy called Glenn. He is on a scavenging mission and invites Rick to join his group of survivors. Among the group is Merle, whose unpredictable behavior forces Rick to handcuff him to a pipe. When the group is overrun by walkers, they are forced to leave Merle behind. Glenn takes Rick back to his camp, which includes other survivors, including Daryl, Andrea, Amy, Dale, T-Dog, Carol, and Shane. Rick is surprised to find that Shane, his best friend, is also alive, but what he didn't know was that his buddy had developed a romantic relationship with Lori in his absence. Tensions rise within the group, and a horde of walkers attacks the camp, killing many survivors. Rick decides to lead the group to the CDC facility in Atlanta, where they meet Dr. Edwin Jenner, the only survivor. Jenner explains that there is no hope for a cure and that everyone is already infected. He now wants to blow up the CDC with everyone inside in it, since there is no hope left for humanity. But Rick helped the group escape just as the building explodes, barely saving the group. On the road, they face challenges such as Carol's daughter, Sophia, going missing, and Carl being accidentally shot by a hunter called Otis. He directs Rick to a nearby farmstead owned by a veterinarian, Herschel. They also discover that the old man has been keeping a barn filled with walkers, hoping to find a cure. Shane becomes increasingly unhinged and opens the barn doors, leading to a massacre of the walkers, and finally saw Sophia as well, who had also turned into a zombie. Rick and Shane got into an argument because of this, which causes things between them to escalate, and eventually Rick is forced to stab him in self-defense. But Carl, seeing everything as he approached forward, and when he saw Shane getting back on his feet, he finishes him off, protecting his father. The gunshot attracts a horde of walkers to the farm. Some of the survivors die, and they are forced to flee. They search for a place to call home and finally finds an abandoned prison. Now, with Rick leading them, they clear up the prison of walkers. Herschel got bit, and so Rick had to amputate one of his legs to prevent the spread of infection. They make it somewhat comfortable for them to live inside the prison. Lori gives birth to Judith. But Lori, she did not survive, and Carl had to shoot her before she turns into a zombie. Her death was traumatizing for Rick, and he kept hallucinating her. Later, they encounter a new group led by a man called the Governor in the town of Woodbury. Michonne, a mysterious hooded woman with a katana, saves Andrea from walkers and joins Rick's group. They rescue Glenn and Maggie from Woodbury, who were captured by Merrill, who has been working with the Governor. Things get tense between the groups and escalate into all-out war. The Governor and his army attack the prison, but Rick's group successfully defends it. The Governor kills his own men when they refuse to continue fighting. When Rick finds Andrea, who was kept captive by the Governor, turns out she had been bitten. She says goodbye to her friends and kills herself to avoid turning. Rick took in some of the survivors from Woodbury to the prison. Later, they face a deadly flu outbreak. Carol takes drastic measures to stop the spread of the illness, which did not work anyway. But Rick banished her from the group for acting on her own. Meanwhile, the defeated Governor meets the Chandler family and develops a relationship with Lily. He discovers that his former right-hand man, Martinez, has gathered his own army in Arsenal. The Governor kills Martinez and leads his new army towards the prison in an attempt to win this time. He was able to capture Michonne and her cell, threatening their lives when Rick tried to reason with him. The Governor beheads her cell, and his men storm the prison gates. A war breaks out between the two. Walkers begin boring inside the prison in the chaos. Megan, Lily's daughter, is bitten by a walker, and the Governor is forced to put her down, As Rick and the governor enter a brawl, Michonne fatally wounds the governor, and Lily, distraught over the pain he has caused her family, executes him before being devoured by the walkers. The survivors from the prison are forced to abandon their home and are separated from each other. Rick went off the rail for a while, but Carl was watching over him. The scattered members of the group begin seeing signs leading to a supposed sanctuary called Terminus. Along their separate journeys to Terminus, Carol had no choice but to shoot a young girl who had killed her own sister to see her turn into a zombie. Beth, Maggie's sister, she was having fun time with Daryl until they get separated, and she got kidnapped by mysterious strangers in a car. Glenn, traveling with Tara and the Chandler family before running into Abraham and his group, who were escorting Eugene Porter to Washington, D.C., with a supposed cure for the zombie outbreak. Michonne tracks down Rick and Carl, and them with Daryl finally reach Terminus as well. They are warmly greeted by its leader, Gareth. However, they soon discover that the community was not what it seems like, that the residents are cannibals. The group get locked inside a train car. Carol and Tyrese eventually caught up with what's going on and causes an explosion in Terminus, blasting a giant hole, which gave Rick and the others enough time to make their escape. The group is later joined by a priest called Gabriel, who is experiencing a crisis of faith. They continue their journey and discover that Beth has been kidnapped by another group of survivors who have taken over an abandoned hospital. Rick captures one of the members from their group and tries to trade her for Beth, but during the exchange, Beth acted out, stabbing Dawn, and she instinctively shot her, and so Daryl kills Dawn in response. The others stand down, and Rick's group leaves the hospital with Beth's corpse. Despite the setbacks, they continue on their track to Washington, D.C. with Eugene, who confesses that he lied about knowing a cure. Noah's community was overrun by walkers, and when he panics, Tyrese gets bit by a walker while protecting him. Even though Michonne cuts off the infected arm to save him, he still dies. A guy called Aaron approached them, identifying himself as a friend. He let them know of the community he came from, Alexandria, and he welcomes the group to join his community. Though skeptical at first because of their previous encounters, Rick decides to take a look at the community. They eventually arrive at Alexandria, a walled-off safe zone led by Deanna. Rick initially feels paranoid about the community, but eventually settles in. They felt safe inside the community after spending a long time on the road and fending off enemies and zombies. They were able to appreciate the peace. Rick got close to Jessie. Turns out that her husband abuses her. Rick tries to stop him, and things escalate when he pulls out his gun, but Michonne knocks him out cold. Dina prepared to hold a meeting to decide exiling Rick for his outburst, and Rick, he prepare his group to act, should they decide to do so. Daryl and Aaron come through, the Wolves, who are a group of scavengers camping near their settlement and may threaten the community. The both come across Morgan Jones as well. He had been following Rick's trail. When the zombies get inside the community because of the carelessness of the priest Gabriel, but Rick takes care of the zombies, showing Dina how important he is to the community. When Pete barges into the meeting, meaning to kill Rick, but took out Deanna's husband instead, and so now she was forced to change her mind, allowing Rick to eliminate Pete. After he loses his son and an awful lot of killing, Morgan chooses to walk a life of peace. They find a herd of walkers stuck in a nearby quarry. Rick comes up with a plan to lure away the walkers from their current path, which was towards their community. The plan worked up until a horn blares, which attracted the horde. Back towards Alexandria, this was actually an attack strategy by the Wolf Pack, and they attacked the community as they were distracted and overwhelmed by the walkers failing to distract the herd. Glenn and Nicholas are surrounded by walkers, which made Nicholas to panic and shoot himself. The rest, who remained, try to find safety. Rick covers the group in walker blood and guts to blend in and move through the walkers undetected. But when Dina's kid draws too much attention, the plan fails. When Diana's kid Sam draws too much attention, the plan fails and the walkers kill both him and his mother. Now blaming everything on Rick, her other son tries shooting Rick, but Michonne stabs him, but the gun misfires and Carl loses his eye. and they had to fight their way out, killing every single walker on the way. On the road, Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha are confronted by the people called Saviors, who tell them that all of their possessions now belong to a man called Negan, but Daryl and the group take care of them and continue towards Alexandria. While on a supply run, Rick and Daryl come across a man called Jesus, who steals their truck, but after a fight, they were able to bring him back to Alexandria. The guy introduces them to his community called the Hilltop. They learn about Negan, the leader of the group called the Saviors, who extort supplies from the Hilltop. Maggie makes a deal with Gregory to kill Negan and his group in exchange for half of their supplies. Maggie and Carol are taken hostage by Paula and her group of Saviors. They saw that Rick has one of their guy called Primo. They move Carol and Maggie to a slaughterhouse, awaiting reinforcements to get back Primo when they had their chance. Maggie and Carol freed themselves and killed their captors, though this was traumatizing for Carol. Rick asks Primo about Negan, and he tells him that he is Negan, and so Rick shoot him. They hunt down the Saviors and slaughters them at their various compounds, thinking that the matter is resolved. However, when they try to get Maggie to Hilltop for medical attention since she is pregnant with Glenn's baby, but find all of the routes blocked by the Saviors. They try to carry Maggie on foot, but are eventually captured by some Saviors, and the actual Negan shows up wearing a leather jacket, and with his barbed wire baseball bat, he brutally beats Abraham and Glenn to death to instill fear in them and just to show everyone who's running the show. Daryl is taken hostage and the Saviors leaves. Sasha take Maggie to Hilltop to recover, along with the bodies of Glenn and Abraham. Negan, not long after, was able to break Rick's resolve by nearly forcing him to cut off his son's arm. Rick accepts defeat and encourages his community to obey Negan. However, some members, including Rosita, reject this and begin plotting against Negan. She attempts to shoot him, but fails. Daryl is locked in a cell at the sanctuary, where Negan and Dwight constantly torture him, trying to break him. Infiltrating inside the sanctuary with help from Jesus, Daryl finally escapes. Rick decide to stand and make their move against Negan. Eugene, who was also taken a hostage, quickly submits to his authority and earns a place among his most trusted council. Alexandria forms an alliance with Hilltop and another community known as the Kingdom, who had also been forced into servitude by the Saviors. The Kingdom is led by the eccentric king Ezekiel, who has a pet tiger. He takes an immediate interest in Carol, and they develop a romance. Alexandria is supplied with guns by the community Oceanside, who had all of their men killed by the Saviors. Rick forges an uneasy alliance with a group known as the Scavengers, led by Jadis. The final piece to his alliance is Dwight, who offers to act as a double agent to help Rick take down Negan from the inside. As the communities prepares to go to war with the Saviors, several people grow impatient and attempt to take matters into their own hands. Sasha sneaks into the sanctuary to assassinate Negan, but is caught. And now, Negan offers to trade Sasha for all of their supplies. However, she kills herself and turns into a walker, distracting the Saviors and giving Alexandria a chance to fight back. Unfortunately, the Scavengers turn on Rick and support the Saviors since Negan made them a better offer. For going against his wishes, Negan decides to teach Rick and each of them a lesson by killing Carl. But the Tiger interrupts. Along with the people from Kingdom and the Hilltop, and the Saviors and Scavengers are forced to retreat. Now everyone know it is war. The Kingdom, Hilltop, Oceanside, and Alexandria rally their communities together to take down Negan. They prepare for the ultimate battle against the Saviors. The citizens of the Hilltop opts out Gregory as their leader and accepts Maggie to lead them. They attack the sanctuary, taking down its fences and flooding the compound with walkers. Rick loses his son Carl, who got bit by a walker. In fact, his final request to Rick was to build a better future alongside the Saviors and to not choose violence over it. Dwight proves his allegiance to Rick by luring the Saviors away and assisting in the group's escape. Negan intends to contaminate the Savior's weapons with walker blood in order to cause the others to turn, rather than killing them. While Eugene leads a group of Saviors in making bullets at a new outpost. A group of Saviors led by Alden abandons Negan to join the hilltop. Negan sets the stage for the Saviors to put an end to the war. When Negan discovers that Dwight was a traitor, he begins beating him with false information, which led Rick's army into a trap. But in a turn of events, Eugene sabotages the ammo, causing the Saviors' guns to backfire, giving Rick's army advantage over them to defeat the Saviors. Finally, Rick and Negan engage in a fight to the death, and Rick was able to slash his throat and put an end to the battle. Though he decided to spare Negan's life, saving him, knowing it's what Carl would have wanted. In the aftermath of the war, the communities begin to rebuild. 18 months have passed since the defeat of Negan, and the Savior army have come together and rebuilt with the other communities. But some former Saviors still support Negan's methods and resent the new way of life. Gregory, who lost the leadership of Hilltop, tries to have Maggie killed to regain his role at Hilltop, but is executed instead. A huge storm takes out the main bridge to Hilltop. The communities work together to repair the bridge. As a herd approaches toward them, and Justin fails to sound the alarm and warn everyone, Aaron's arm gets crushed under a log during the chaos. Knowing there is no other way for the group's survival, Rick sacrifices himself by luring a walker herd onto the bridge, blowing them up, saving everyone else. However, Jade, finding Rick alive, and contacts her mysterious allies with a helicopter and save him. 6 years have passed, and the communities have fallen out of contact with each other, but continue to grow and rebuild. Michonne raises Judith and her son, RJ. Judith befriends Negan, besides what the others think of him. Darl lives alone, still searching for Rick, since they never recover his body 6 years ago. Meanwhile, a new villainous group known as the Whisperers, who wears masks made from the faces of walkers. Michonne leads a group to capture a young Whisperer named Lydia, who is the daughter of the Whisperers' leader, also known as Alpha. The communities vow to work together to defeat the Whisperers, but Alpha sets a border made of severed heads as a warning. The communities mourn the loss of their friends. It gets tense as they fear more attacks from the Whisperers. The community faces difficulties with an upcoming blizzard, and Judith runs off to rescue Dog. Now, Negan went after her, risking his own life to save her, injuring his leg in the process. Michonne meets a stranger called Virgil, who offers to take her to an island naval base to gather weapons which they can use against the Whispers. However, Michonne discovers that Virgil has gone insane and imprisoned his former allies. She manages to free the prisoners and convince Virgil to help her. They find a beach naval boat where she shockingly finds items belonging to her long-lost love, Rick Grimes. She informs her daughter Judith about the possibility of Rick being alive, and so Judith convinces her to go look for him instead of returning home. Meanwhile, Eugene, Ezekiel, and Yumiko go on a mission to meet Stephanie and form an alliance with her community. When they reach their destination, they are captured by armored soldiers looking like stormtroopers. Carol releases Negan in the hopes that he can defeat the Whisperers. Negan joins the Whisperers and gains the trust of Alpha while clashing with her right-hand man, Beta. The Whisperers attack the hilltop and burn the entire community, leaving Alexandria as the last standing community. Negan was able to get close to Alpha and make her trust him, and when she least expected, he kills her and delivers her head to Carol. However, this made Beta mad, and he commands the Whisperer army. After Daryl mortally wounds Beta, he is devoured by walkers. Maggie lead a group to search for supplies, but they are attacked by a group called the Reapers, led by a man called Pope. Daryl is captured by the Reapers and discovers that his ex-girlfriend Leah is a member. Maggie reluctantly asks Negan for help in defeating the Reapers. He crafts walker skin masks like the Whisperers to infiltrate a herd of walkers and lead them to the Reaper base. Leah, realizing that Pope doesn't have the group's best interest at heart, murders him and took in charge of the group. She continues leading the Reapers in their fight against Alexandria. Eventually, the Reapers are defeated and surrenders, but Maggie slaughters all of them except Leah, who Daryl allows to escape. Commonwealth, a large and thriving community led by Governor Pamela Milton. The group is introduced to Deputy Governor Lance Hornsby, who offers them supplies to help rebuild Alexandria. Most of the Alexandrians relocate to the Commonwealth despite Maggie's refusal to join. Seems idyllic on the surface, but the harsh glass divide becomes apparent. Carol becomes an enforcer for Lance in exchange for pushing medical treatment at the top for Ezekiel's cancer. Eugene discovers that Stephanie has made a fool of him and was directed by Lance to earn his trust. He then meets the real Stephanie. She introduces herself as Max Mercer. She was using her mother's name as a code name in the radio. Aaron and Gabriel join an outreach mission to bring survivors from an apartment complex into the Commonwealth. Negan is living amongst this community and is married to a woman called Annie. Lance believes that their community attacked a Commonwealth caravan and orders their death. Knowing that Lance has to be stopped, Gabriel sends a message to Maggie, who arrives with soldiers to fight the Commonwealth. Eugene stands trial for Sebastian's death, but the words he spoke converts Mercer to the revolution. Mercer helps sneak the coalition army back into the Commonwealth. Pamela leads the army into a trap, and Judith takes a bullet meant for Maggie. The Commonwealth is overrun by walkers, and Pamela orders her soldiers to protect the elites and abandon everyone else. Daryl saves Judith's life. The coalition saves the Commonwealth. Daryl and Mercer lead their teams, overthrow Pamela, and arrest her. Maggie chooses not to kill her. It is revealed that the survivors led the walkers into the estates and blew them all up with the help of the Commonwealth people. Maggie tells Negan that she hasn't forgiven him yet, but she no longer wants to hate him. Judith informs Daryl that Michonne is still alive and is searching for Rick, prompting Daryl to go in search of them as well. Before leaving, Daryl said goodbye to Carol and promises to return soon. The series comes to an end with a glimpse of Michonne finally catching up to Rick, and Rick Grimes, himself still unable to escape from the CRM group, but holding on to the hope of reuniting with his family one day.